Empires use their vast military to overtake and consume other nations. And today we actually have the Ukraine calling for assistance from the West to fund them, to weaponize them so that they can fight against Russia. So today we will discuss how the Ukraine is preparing for a full-scale war. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. This is going to be a quick video for you today. I just want to show you how this all could pan out. But first, let's begin with this. The number of corporations in the US hit the lowest level seen in 40 years. So the US is hurting in many categories here, and this is just one very important statistic. See, the large corporations, the mega corporations, are doing better than ever. But unfortunately, many of these corporations are failing, possibly because of the regulations, increased taxations, all these laws that are put into place, like Obamacare, are really strangling the system. But a lot of times, they are simply being shipped overseas. It makes a lot more sense for a company, if they're doing business using labor, to simply move that business overseas. Now, this obviously has implications, because when a nation is really under attack, and I do not mean that militarily, but when it is suffering, they have an option, and that is, of course, to go to war. It distracts the public and gets them rooting for their nation. So I'm going to move on quickly here. Russia ratifies $100 billion BRICS New Development Bank. This is something that I've been covering ever since they've been talking about it, but here they are actually ratifying it, and it is just the beginning. Of course, $100 billion is simply not enough to counteract the larger banking type institutions that are set up in the world, but it is essentially the beginning of something bigger. They have gotten together and decided that they want to do away with the power of the US. Now, this brings me to my next point, which I wrote about in my book, and I'm quoting Bloomberg talking about the Chinese premier said that the Fed's policy would result in financial instability and asset bubbles, and they're talking here about money printing. So the one last thing, a few days after the Fed suggested that it would be ready to start buying treasuries, the Brazilian finance minister said governments were engaging in a currency war. And these are two examples here of the BRIC nations. And they're talking about a currency war that's taking place. This is not the only type of war, of course, but we are seeing that occurring today with the nations like the BRICS going away, moving away from the US dollar in a rapid pace. So, let's look at this. Where could exactly all the money be flowing? Now, one of the things that are doing well, that's for sure, is all of those involved in the military-industrial complex. And this is just one thing I pulled up out of the Financial Post. Bulk up your portfolio with U.S. military stocks. So assuredly, we have the stocks like this that are basically funding and supplying the weapons of the West here, bringing them over, and they will get over to the Ukraine. Putin even said that is already occurring as we speak, and here they are going ahead with this violence. So I'm going to move on right here to this very important pie chart. Calendar years, the U.S. has been at war since 1776. You can see that there have been only 21 years of peacetime since 1776, and there are 214 war years, and this goes up to 2011. So if you actually include the more recent years up until today, you have actually 93% of the time involved in war. This is something that really goes to show you where the money is being spent and where the priorities lie. Of course, when a nation is suffering, they always go to war in order to distract the public. This is what worries me right now, because they're already engaged in multiple wars, but the economy is getting worse. So the proxy war that we're seeing right now in the Ukraine, should that become a full-scale war, we're going to have major problems and much to think about, much to worry about. And then we also look at what could happen with Syria. Russia is heavily involved with Syria as well. And then you always have to factor in Israel too, because Israel is consistently threatening Iran and other nations, and this could very well be a problem because the US and Israel are very big allies, and I'll get into that in a moment. Look at this interactive chart. This is something that will be very interesting for you if you like this type of information. And what you can see is all the US troops that are deployed to different parts of the world. So you simply put your mouse over the different country and you can see for yourself. But of course, the US is in practically every single nation around the world, some more than others, but you can see how it is spreading throughout the Middle East into North Africa, and they are expanding rather than contracting the nations that they are in. Of course, this does not even include the covert operations that we know that are taking place. So this is just some good information for you to empower you. And this is the big news of the day. Ukraine's ambassador to Canada says the world must not be afraid of joining Ukraine in the fight against a nuclear power. And of course, they're talking about Russia. Ukraine's deputy foreign minister says he is preparing for, quote, a full-scale war against Russia and wants Canada to help by supplying lethal weapons and the training to use them. So of course, Canada's getting pulled in to this fight. Once again, they have been doing lots of damage in the Middle East, and their army, the military, is being used heavily in the past few years, particularly since the Iraq, and really we can see how all of the militaries around the world are getting into this fight. So, move on right here. There is definitely some more information that you need to check out. I just wanted to make this a quick video. And right here, last but not least, U.S. aid to Israel totals $234 billion over the 6 decades here. And this right here, I've seen reports that are much, much higher. But even with this number here, hundreds of billions of dollars are going from the U.S. over to Israel. And Israel has an absolutely impeccable army. And of course, they're using this to have a stronghold over the Middle East. I do consider that Israel is a satellite state essentially of the US in many ways, but in other ways you can see it as the other way around. They do have a lot of stronghold on each other. And right here, generous assistance reflects common strategic interests and values rather than lobbying pressure. And that's what they're saying right here. All I wanted to note from this is that we have an expansion of the military-industrial complex. That's who's winning these wars. It isn't the people on either end here. Unfortunately, those in the military are suffering from mass quantities of PTSD, and they are committing suicide at rapid rates right now. We can see these numbers increasing year over year. They are using military contractors significantly because their army, because their military has to spread so thin. This is very concerning. The economy is going down significantly. We have more problems than we have basically good points or prosperity, and this will lead us into a bigger, wider war. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I truly appreciate that. And don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. You just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.